Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka... And welcome back to another Garden of Banban playthrough.
Today we are busting.
Today we are talking once again about erratas. So frequently, cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are too powerful and get banned, and sometimes they are removed from the ban list with an errata. This usually happens to fan-favorite cards like Sangan. Sometimes Konami doesn't go far enough in changing the cards like they did with Imperial Order. Sometimes they hit a sweet spot like they did with cards like Sangan that still saw a fair amount of play as searchers for cards like Crusadia Arborea, but sometimes they massacre my boys. Today I'm asking you, what errata nerfs absolutely destroyed their original card? And I'll begin with one of my favorites, Ring of Destruction. Originally, this card allowed you to target a monster on the field and dome each player for life points equal to its attack. It was responsible not only for a bunch of wins that felt a little unfair, but also a bunch of ties. To rectify this, when it was removed from the ban list, it had the following changes. During your opponent's turn, that's new. Target one face-up monster your opponent controls, that's new. Whose attack is less than or equal to their life points, that's new. Destroy that face-up monster, and if you do, you take the damage first, and then your opponent takes the damage as well. That's new. Upon release from the list, people tinkered with it a little bit and realized almost immediately that all of these changes doomed it to unplayability. Let's see what other massacres you have in the comments. It's been a long fucking week, chat. Brain control is so funny. We figured we might be able to get this back, but only if it's strictly worse than mind control, which you already have, and we've unbanned Change of Heart. Yep, Brain Control says pay 800, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls. That can be normal, summoned, or set. That back half of that sentence didn't used to be on the card, and it's very funny now that that effect is represented on like 2 or 3 different cards that are completely legal. Dyer says they errated Burstinatrix, not doing anything relevant, but her flavor text. A flame manipulator who is the only woman among the elemental heroes. A flame manipulator who was the first elemental hero woman. This is what the woke leftist ideology is doing to Yu-Gi-Oh! Ultima says, look at how they massacred my boy. This is probably the best example. Sinister Serpent, during your standby phase, if this card is in your graveyard, return it to your hand. Sinister Serpent. During your standby phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can add it to your hand. Also, banish a Sinister Serpent from your graveyard during your opponent's next end phase. It could have its old text, and it'd be absolutely fine. Scarlan says, I'm torn on Coelacanth. In his original Ulti or Ultra print, his last effect negates effects of monsters. Then they upgraded him to negate activations, which allows him to activate in the damage step. But in Maze, they reverted it to the original, nerfing it, but making the Ulti on the right text again. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. These are changes specifically for Edison format. Frequently, Edison format playables, like for a short period Coelacanth was expected to be, will have gotten text changes basically by accident that no one caught. Things like Armory Armor frequently like this, and recent reprints just have the old text. They're like, we are sorry, our bad. Darkness Approaches used to be able to put a card in face-down attack position. Now, it's just boring. Sophie's got a great one. I get why you don't want to leave it at full power, but it really sucks to see one of the most iconic boss monsters in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And one of the first boss monsters as well, I might add, reduced to unplayable pack filler. I'd rather let him sit on his place of honor on the list forever than have him back in this sad state. Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End can't be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by banishing a light and a dark from your graveyard. Once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, send as many cards on both players' hands and field to the graveyard as possible, then inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card sent to the opponent's graveyard by this effect. You cannot activate other cards or effects during the turn you activate this card's effect. Tribute one dark monster with 1,000 or less attack. Check all monsters on your opponent's side of the field, your opponent's hand, and all cards they draw until the end of your opponent's third turn after this card's activation, and destroy all monsters with 1,500 or more attack. Tribute a dark monster with 1,000 or less attack, : your opponent takes no damage until the end of the next turn after this card resolves. Also, you look at your opponent's hand and all monsters they control, and if you do, destroy the monsters among them with 1,500 or more attack. Then your opponent can destroy up to 3 monsters with 1,500 or more attack in their deck. 1 turn total, Wabaku's your opponent, allows them to Foolish Burial 3 times, except it's better than Foolish Burial. It's destroying from deck, so they can trigger stuff like Baby Sarasaurus. Is it any wonder that this card saw 0 play after it was unbanned? Shouts out to the OCG only Mindmaster errata that did nothing to fix the problems with the card. What did they add? Except Mindmaster. Yeah, I don't really understand this one. Even at the time, it was shocking. 1 Earth Tuner plus 1 Tuner monsters used to say 1 Tuner plus 1 Tuner. Came off at the point where if it wasn't changed at all, it would still be unplayable. But then they made it extra unplayable. I understand why Fusion's getting so generic. Future Fusion became Painful Choice 2, but I still get sad thinking about how they gutted it. Original Future Fusion immediately sends a whole shitload of cards to the graveyard, and then 2 turns later turbos out of Fusion. In practice, it ended up being Foolish Burial a lot of the time. New Future Fusion has to stay on the field for a turn before it gets to bin cards, making it absolutely useless. It's good that they eroded him. Old Dark Strike Fighter saying you contribute a monster to inflict damage to your opponent equal to its level times 200. Basically, red, you win. New Dark Strike Fighter says during your main phase 1, no combat for you. You contribute a monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attributed monster's level times 200. You can only use this effect of Dark Strike Fighter once per turn. How the hell has nobody mentioned the gutting of Disc Commander? It's just a different card. Old Disc Commander, when this card is special summoned from the graveyard, draw 2 cards. New Disc Commander cannot be special summoned from the graveyard the turn this card was sent to the graveyard. If this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can draw 2 cards. You can only use this effect of Destiny Hero, Disc Commander, once per duel. Why? Duels only last 2 turns anyway. Just slap an OPT on there. Give us back the soft once per duel, cowards. I mean, they hurt Rampart Blaster, but I can't determine why. It's not like this card was even remotely playable originally. Elemental Hero Clayman plus Elemental Hero Burstinatrix must be fusion summoned. This card can attack directly while in defense position. If it does, apply its attack for damage calculation, and its attack is halved during damage calculation only. Was changed to this card can attack while in face-up defense position, but only if your opponent controls no monsters. Well, Was someone FTKing with Rampart Blaster Turbo? The reason you're seeing third erratum as the changed version is because it said that first, then they changed it, then changed it back. And thank God for that. I mean, good that they changed this because there's no way it could be legal and fair. Exchange of the Spirit, you can only activate this card by paying 1,000 life points while there are 15 or more cards in your graveyard, a trivial number at this point in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Both players swap the cards in their graveyard with the cards in their deck, then shuffle each cards into the deck into a new deck zone. Changed to if both players have 15 or more cards in their graveyard. So they did massacre Firewall Dragon by making it a hard once per turn, but, good. Just so you all know, this wasn't changed from a soft once. It was changed from a nunce. You could just do it forever. Oh, also the Cyberse restriction. Honestly, I'm going to be real with you. I did not realize they added the Cyberse restriction. Did you know they needed to capitalize the barrier on Trishula? What? There's no way that's true. Hold up. It's the dual terminal print? Holy shit, they're spitting. Look at that. And the new one has the big B. Ice Mirror was one of the first cases where a card was released in Duel Links before real life and saw absolutely no play. I remember seeing this in the card trader. Target a level 3 or lower water monster you control. Special summon a monster with the same name from your deck, but it cannot declare an attack this turn. When it was finally time to import it to the OCG, they gave it a restriction that made the card unplayable. But you cannot special summon from the extra deck while you control that face-up special summoned monster. Thanks! In looking at this one, we've actually gone down a bit of a rabbit hole. Ocean Dragon Lord Neo Daedalus says, send an Umi on your side of the field to the graveyard to send all cards in both players' hand and on the field of the graveyard except this card. You may recognize that makes it better than said. However, apparently this was a misprint at release. By Euro, it had the restriction, and kids were supposed to mail in their copies of this from the starter to get this version. Has to be special summoned by attributing Levia Dragon Daedalus, which makes it functionally unplayable. Important announcement from Konami Corporation! The English version of the ultra-rare card Ocean Dragon Lord Neo Daedalus was unfortunately misprinted. Konami regrets the error. A redemption program will be created for customers to get correctly printed versions of Neo Daedalus, not only through a mail-in offer, but at major Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game events. That's so funny. All in all, I think pretty much everything we talked about today could have been brought back in its original form, no problem. Don't worry, Konami. I can be trusted with Old Ring. Please, give it back to me. They really nerfed him on this one. Super undeserved. Alright, this is current Cash Tira. What was he changed from? Oh! Are you sure they changed him? This is how I've been playing him.